as mentioned earlier, the Wellington Phoenix women were the only Kiwi A-League team to get a win after heavy defeats for Auckland FC and the Wellington Phoenix men. So let's roll through the Wellington Phoenix women and their victory over Sydney FC. As we said, goals to Grace Jale and Zoe McMeekin.
Zoe McMeekin.
The rampaging right back who just seems to pop up everywhere on the field, usually not at right back, but that's what we love about Zoe McMeekin. What did you make of the Wellington Phoenix women victory over Sydney FC, who are now last in the A-League? Wellington Phoenix, 3 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses, 10 points. They are 1 point ahead of Adelaide, and they are 1 point below Western United.
Well, I mean, the downfall of Sydney FC is kind of enjoyable. They're defending champions. They're always up near the top. This year, they just, for whatever reason, I think it's one of those things where, like, if you're one of the best teams year on year in the league, like the A-League, men or women, because I think there are elements of this about Central Coast who are a little bit sturdier. They're not sitting where Sydney are in the women's table, but there's elements of this as well where it's like, in fact, I think you can even say it about the Phoenix Blokes quite specifically too. Like, if you're good, you sell your players. Because those players are in the shop window and your best players leave. They go on to bigger and better opportunities, which they have earned through their performances, which made you a good team. And then they leave, and the Phoenix have got to replace Finn Sermon with like Isaac Hughes and Corbin Piper and stuff, who I think everyone who's watched these games can see those guys are really talented footballers. But they did both make a mistake leading to goals that they conceded in the Western Sydney Wanderers game. So you can see the ways in which, like, the passing of the baton isn't always a smooth thing. You've got players who are performing at the top level and then they leave, and then suddenly you've got to replace them, and the guys maybe might need an extra year or so to settle in to get back to the levels that you were before. Maybe some of that's gone on with the Phoenix. We'll see how they go in the men's A-League, but it's definitely happening with Sydney FC and the women's A-League. And one of the things that, like, because one of the players who left since last year was Jada Wyman, who their goalkeeper, who's been very good for several seasons. They replaced her with Brianna Edwards, Phoenix reserve goalkeeper from the last couple of years. Brought her in, made her the starting goalkeeper. You might notice we didn't actually see her, though, on the game on the weekend. That's because after about 3 weeks ago, she got the Ollie Sale treatment and they dropped her because the team wasn't playing very well. So frankly, like, it's harsh, but also if the team's not playing very well, nobody's beyond reproach, and something has to change, and it might not always necessarily even be the deserving players. So I didn't watch enough of their games to know if she was playing fantastically or terribly or however it was playing out for them. I just know that their last few games have seen Talia Franco playing in goal. And it was Talia Franco who made the mistake not being able to make that save off the Grace Jale shot, which put the Phoenix in front and changed the course of what was a pretty even game, which could have gone very much either way. Especially in the first half, I thought Sydney were really quite good, and the Phoenix showed a few wobbly signs in defense. For a good defensive team, there are a few instances where it's like, those aren't good defensive team things to be doing. There's like second chance efforts and things like this where they're just a little bit hesitant.
Berry had a few mishaps.
Yeah, she did, and she wasn't alone in that either. So there was some sketchiness, which they did quite well to get out of there at 0-0. Frankly, at half time, they could have been 2-0 down. However, then the rain came. The rain actually started falling before the half was done. It was bucketing down. The players like ran off the pitch. It was like, I don't know if they still count that on like the GPS stats when they're reporting, but there would have been like 22 sprints. It just got added at the point of 47 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, it's rain, but it's also like that's what they do. Like, you watch a rugby game, no one walks off the pitch at halftime.
No, but you jog off. You don't sprint off.
I don't know. You watch the All Blacks; they're sprinting off the field as fast as they can.
I think that does happen more in, yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe the All Blacks are just weird. The All Blacks are weird about some things. That might be one of them. I I don't get that impression as much from football,
But I
but
don't think
definitely.
like any professional athlete who plays out an outdoor sport is trying to get out of the rain. You know, like they know they have to get back in the rain, so they're not too worried. But that's just a minor
Well,
detail.
they didn't have to get back in the rain because that's the thing is that it was raining so heavily that the game got postponed for 45 minutes, which was interesting alignment because the games overlapped with the Auckland FC game. So because that one got delayed, they overlapped even more than they were going to, which meant yeah, I mean, double screening it, so it goes. That's the job. But yeah, the Paul Temple said that he used the what it was like 45 minutes, I think I said, a 45-minute break to like look back at some of the highlights and watch a lot of the first half back and really figure out a few things that they could fix, which has got to be super convenient for a coach. Eh? Like, what better can you ask for? Because they did. They were much better in the second half. They took control of the game. I was skeptical of whether they'd find a goal for it, but they did, and they got it through a little bit of a goalkeeping error. It was a good shot from Grace Jolly, and when it's been pouring with rain, you like those shots that bounce just in front of the goalkeeper and skid on a little bit, and they're tricky to handle. So it was pretty obvious that that ball just it got to Franco a little bit quicker than she intended, which is why she didn't get enough contact on it. It's still squeezed in. But, you know, good hit from Grace Jolly. That was her first goal in more than a year in the A-League. So very much needed. I think her signing for the Phoenix was seen as like, you know, quite a blockbuster one. They're bringing back a regular Football Ferns international and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, I'm kind of sitting here thinking I don't want to use a word like overrated, because I think when people say overrated, they often just use it as a euphemism for saying this person sucks. Grace Jolly does not suck. Grace Jolly is a very good footballer, but Grace Jolly has struggled to find a sort of settled role in the A-League. She's played at a different club in each of her 4 years, I think it is. Phoenix in two different stints, but still. And she's played in a few different positions within that. And even with the Football Ferns, she's played in a few different positions. So while she's an established Football Ferns player, I'm thinking like, well, the next time we see the Football Ferns in action, like Hannah Blake didn't go to the Olympics and she's scoring goals at a good level in England. Maggie Jenkins is doing good stuff over in Turkey. And Gabby Rennie had a really good season there, so she's probably reinforced her status with the Ferns in Finland, her first pro season with Island United. There's a few other ones I could mention as well, like Chiara Braccelli. A lot of people probably don't even know Chiara Braccelli if they haven't watched the age grade stuff, but she's been starting regularly at Serie A in Italy. It's only like 3 New Zealanders who've ever played Serie A on the women's side, and only 1 on the men's side. Oh, shout out Libby Kikache. So, like, there's some good attacking players who were not in the mix, or at least not in the squad for the Olympics, who are coming in. Grace Jolly is not a settled Football Fern selection. She needs to sort of knuckle down. And she's been in and out of the starting lineup for the Phoenix as well. She needs to. I stopped my sentence a little bit too early there when I said she needs to knuckle down. So she's to put in it. No, she needs to find a role that suits when this Phoenix team gets some regular sort of extended starts and put some goal contributions in there. Here we go. She scored a lovely goal on this that helps set up a victory. So that's good stuff there. That's great development. She scored, I think, 3 goals in their first 3 games for, was it Perth last season? Yeah, Perth. It was Canberra. She went Phoenix, Canberra, Perth, then back to the Phoenix. So it's 3 goals in her first 3 games for Perth and then didn't score again for the entire rest of the season. So very overdue for this goal. And hopefully it's the goalkeeping error that gets Brianna Edwards, an ex-Phoenix player and a Football Ferns. And so, yeah, she is an international. She played at the Olympic qualifying tournament, so she's got at least 1 cap. Get her back in a starting role for Sydney FC would be cool as well. I want to see the Kiwi players thriving and doing well. On that note, I'll mention that Kelly Brown scored, I think, a 96th minute penalty for Perth Glory, which don't think it was to win. I think it was to salvage a draw, but it was a big moment. And Kelly Brown's the one who steps up to take the penalty. She scores it just. Kiva got a big hand to it, but she scored it, sweet as. And yeah, Zoe McMeekin can get a nice goal as well, header from a corner, which to your earlier point, not what you expect of a right back. But Zoe McMeekin is not what you expect of a right back in many different ways. So that was good stuff. They've tended to be better when they've had Lara Wall and Zoe McMeekin as their fullbacks as well. It's a sort of interesting note of the season so far. But so yeah, speaking of that season so far, 3 games, 3 defeats to start in a row, and then since then they've taken now 10 points from their following 4 games. They're up to 5th on the table. It's a 4-game unbeaten streak. 3 of those are victories. They're keeping some clean sheets. They're looking very good defensively. They're finding a way to score goals now, which is pretty helpful because, well, for obvious reasons. And they're playing quite good cohesive footy. I think things are starting to click in a way for them and have started to click in the last couple. It was a little bit of a sketchy start, terrible first half of their first game, but they've looked pretty solid recently, and they look pretty solid in a way where it feels like there's more to come as well as players get as build into their combinations even more, because we haven't actually seen a lot of good toil and graft from Olivia Ferguson up front, but we're not really seeing a lot of goal scoring chances yet. That'll come at some point. Mebe Tanaka has been very good when she's had moments. Olivia Kelly didn't even start this game, but she's got quality to come into the side at some point. Maya McCutcheon's been good from day one, so no dramas there. But Carolina Vahal is looking pretty sharp these last couple of games as well. She had a handy clean sheet there, so he's a good signs for the Knicks, who also have Amelia Abbott joining now, who was sort of known from the start that this would happen. She's a one-cap Football Ferns international, but more probably famous for being part of the under-17 World Cup side that got their bronze medals in 2018. One of 6 or 7 or 8 players from that squad now who have gone through the Wellington Phoenix at some point. So there's a clear directive there, and she's now joined. She's finished up her college season in America, so I'll be very curious to see what she can offer as a ball-winning midfielder. They've got a couple of those. Daisy Brazendale's had a very good season so far, coming out of the academy, originally from Nelson. Coincidentally, Amelia Abbott, originally from Nelson as well. So there you go. And they're getting a T20 against Sri Lanka soon. Great times to be from Nelson.
They're not as good as Maya McCutcheon, though. She's an absolute force in the midfield, and I don't want anyone taking minutes away from her. I also like Ferguson up front. You want strikers who score goals, but you also want strikers who make the team better. You want strikers who make the players around them better. I just think Ferguson, she seems more robust than any other option up top, and that seems to give the Phoenix a bit more confidence, a bit more aggression, a bit more energy, and I think that creates chances elsewhere. And I think Maya McCutcheon is the best player in the team. I think Emma Main is the best New Zealand player in the team. Emma Main is just always energetic, vibrant. She's got a big boot. She's like one of the biggest boots in the team, if I can say that. And she always impresses me when she's playing for the Phoenix. So I want to shout out Emma Main because she has caught my eye, along with Maya McCutcheon, who is cut from the same cloth as Verstrata and Alex Roof. Maybe Maya McCutcheon's in between. Verstrata's just smooth and classy in that role. Roof is a bit more grisly, a bit more gritty, and to be honest, a bit more niggly with how he deals with the opposition players. Maya McCutcheon
shoving that dude over yesterday was...
Yeah, that's why I said it. Maya McCutcheon's in between. And I think that's what the Phoenix need, especially with their helter-skelter style of footy. So shout out to the Phoenix, one of the winning teams of the weekend.
Emma Main as well, definitely someone else who is in that list of players who might nudge Grace Jolly out of football, or not necessarily Grace Jolly, might just frame it as definitely one of those attackers from outside of the Olympic squad who will be pushing for a Football Ferns consideration when they next play, which is against Costa Rica, I think, in March. They've actually scheduled a few games now, which is nice because it will have been about 7 or 8 months since the Olympics by that point.
I get what you're saying about Grace Jolly being a Football Fern, but none of those spots are locked in. Like exactly. same with the Black Cap stuff. Like there's fantastic players on the rise, and to be honest, for the Phoenix, I think Emma Main is better than Grace Jolly at the moment. But the one and only Bevan Jacobs has just right now. He is on 30 runs off 8 deliveries, 2 4s, 3 6s, strike rate of 375. So shout out Bevan Jacobs, just doing his thing for the New Zealand 11. And we had two teams who lost over the weekend, Auckland FC, Wellington Phoenix. Which loss was worse?
Auckland FC's definitely, because A, it snapped a big old winning streak. B, it was at home, well, unbeaten streak because they drew last week. B, it was at home. C, they were just terrible. I don't know where this came from. Steve Corica said afterwards he felt they got complacent. And I think that's probably fair to say. I think there's also a tactical element there where they just kind of got they kind of just got blitzed from the start. Like it felt like they came up against a team that didn't let them settle into their groove and just extend the game out, put a stamp on it defensively, and then grow from there the way that they have done, to where, you know, that thing about how many of their goals have been scored late in games. It's because they grind teams down. Here they came up against an opponent that didn't let themselves get ground down, and they absolutely missed Dan Hall at the back, like just as that big physical presence, sort of repelling things. Because a few of their goals have come down. The few of the goals they've conceded in the last two games have come down that side as well. That sort of right edge channel of the you know, between centre back and full back, where yeah, you think you think the way they were going, the way they were tracking, the sort of foundation set, maybe they'd be able to handle Dan Hall being out for 2 to 3 months a little you know, just as a, you know, next man up kind of thing. We'll deal with it. There might be a little bit of a drop off, but the team can pick it up and sort of in the aggregate, as they say, which just doesn't seem to have happened at all. Like it's very clear that's going to be a big miss. And there is a transfer window. The mid-season transfer window opens in a couple of weeks, and now I'm thinking very much that they probably, especially a team like Auckland, I think would be the Phoenix in this situation, lean a bit more on just we'll mix things up, we'll give some more academy guys a go, and we'll try to find a formula that works. I think Auckland are built a bit more to be like, especially because they don't have an academy system yet because they're too young for that, built a bit more to be like, we'll have to sign someone. And to that point, I noticed this morning, no more Joey C. They've given him the flick, which I don't think will surprise anyone who's been asking, where's Joey Champness? Like, why did they sign this this renowned, you know, quality A-League player of the past and the New Zealand international, and why is he not even getting into matchday squads? Frankly, won't say that surprised me, because if you track his career since he left there, even before that, like, he took a year off from football to go follow his musical dream in LA one time, comes back, does quite well, gets a gig over in Turkey, falls out with, well, that was a tricky one where he got like paid out he got released, but they didn't pay him out, and then he took them to court along with a few other guys and got a big payout. Conveniently didn't pop up on a football pitch after getting this big payout for like 8 months after that. Then he's back at another Turkish club, second tier, so a drop in caliber, but he's like, he has a couple of nice stints for them at the start, and then he gets injured, and then the Turkish team's talking about how he's not coming back from his injury, like he's just staying in Oz or New Zealand. Like there's been too many instances there in his career where it's been like, I'm not sure if this is really what you want to do. Like, I'm just question the motivation a little bit.
Like, he's not there. Who cares?
Well, now he's gone for that reason. So, but also, we're talking about a player being released right before, or a little bit before, a transfer window opens up where they might well be trying to clear a spot in the squad to bring someone else in. So that's the point to make, is that's there might be a clue. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, the way they defended was pretty atrocious, and it set them up just for abysmal failure. It was a bad day, but yeah, you'd have hoped their first defeat would have been a little bit more competitive than that. It was just such a crumbling kind of mentally, which was what's frustrating about that. But then I guess the point whenever this kind of stuff happens is, how do you respond to it? You can have a bad day like this, but is this going to become a habit where they're going to struggle, or are they going to be like, okay, no, that we got caught off guard there, we need to recalibrate things and come back much better next week? Because we've seen how good this team can be. And that doesn't change because of one terrible defeat, but it would change if you start getting 2 or 3 terrible defeats in a row, you know.
Phoenix also lost 4-1. They seem to have also had a bad day, and we don't need to go to we don't need the full breakdown of these losses. It just seems like they were thoroughly outplayed, and we'll see if it's a one-off or if it's just a blip on the radar or if it's something to be concerned about in the coming weeks. I am, though, thoroughly impressed with the ways in which Isaac Hughes finds a mishap. Like, he's doing... Because
it's a different one every week.
I talked him up, and I still think he's got a few good moments. Like against the Wanderers, he had his barnstorming run down the left, and he is like, he was playing pretty wide in that left back position, and we're talking about Nando Peineker's left boot. Isaac Hughes doesn't have that, so it does limit your passing options. He can pass with his left foot, but he doesn't have the accuracy, the power, the whip that Nando Peineker has, so it does limit your passing options in the left side of the field. He did have that
saw at the end of that big barnstorming run where he then had to cross the ball on his left foot couldn't get it where he wanted it to go.
But it's impressive for a young player to... He's had the header into the own goal, he's had the handball for the penalty, and then he slipped over. Those are three completely different mishaps, and it's pretty stink for a youngster to do those mishaps, but welcome to professional football, and you might want some longer sprigs, you might want to get your hand out of the way, and you might not want to head the ball into your own net. I'm sure you'll learn those lessons and keep growing. I do see some similarities, like the Auckland FC, they have got a bit younger, just with absences, injuries. That grizzly, professional, mature, experienced team that I was talking about against the Wellington Phoenix and the Derbies, that's no longer the case. They do have a lot of those players on the field, but this team and the squad has got a bit younger, and you're seeing how difficult it can be when you're relying on those youngsters in key positions, as we've seen with the Wellington Phoenix. So I think the most important thing is the next round. And the next round is this weekend. Wellington Phoenix home to Newcastle Jets, Auckland FC away to Central Coast Mariners. Both those games Saturday, back to back, 5 p.m, 7 p.m. And bad day for the men's A-League teams, but we'll see how they bounce back and if it was a blip on the radar, if it's a part of a wider trend.
Well, with the Phoenix, that was their third loss in a row as well, so they're a little bit closer to that wider trend thing. But we did get to see a bit of Nathan Walker playing in an attacking position towards the end of that game, which he was really encouraging at. I thought he looked very good there, not playing as like a in his head, do your job kind of role, follow the coach's instructions to the letter, out as a wing back kind of thing, but actually in an attacking role, his more natural position where he's able to play a little bit more of what he sees rather than what he sort of feels is the instruction. So I think that was a more freer Nathan Walker was pretty cool. And then also Luke Brooks-Smith getting his debut, youngest ever Phoenix player. I thought it was like a 15-minute cameo. Really funny how the Phoenix sub on Luke Brooks-Smith, and then like 2 minutes later, Western Sydney sub on Juan Mata, former Champions League winner with Chelsea, played for Manchester United, might have even been part of the Spanish World Cup winning squad once upon a time. He's about that age, I'm not sure. That was kind of a funny contrast. But Luke Brooks-Smith as well, I thought showed some really, I won't say he's strong for an A-League player, because the A-League is a very physical thing. Corbin Piper is strong for an A-League player. I think you saw that from Corbin Piper. He's big and physical. Luke Brooks-Smith is not strong for an A-League player, but he's strong for a 16-year-old. Bloody hell. He was shrugging dudes off and looking very much the physical part, and a couple nice touches. There was a nutmeg in there I saw. There's good promising stuff from him as well. I've been waiting for this moment for him, and he didn't disappoint in little cameos, and that's, I think, also another reason why the Phoenix loss was a little bit more, it had a few more encouraging signs in the Auckland FC one, which is very much about everything about them. It's just what can you do next week to make up for this. With the Phoenix, there were positives to take away, in part because of a couple of the younger players. I can't say academy players because Luke Brooks-Smith, not an academy player. They signed him straight to the first team from Hamilton. But yeah, a couple of those guys, some nice signs. Corbin Piper included as well. And even Hughes, I would say these guys, those two both made mistakes leading to early goals. and also kept their heads for the rest of the game pretty well, because the 4-1 scoreline was blown out a bit. I mean, they had it at 2-1, looking like they might get a comeback mid-half as well. So there's a bit more of that too. So, yeah, another bad day at the office from the Phoenix, and there's been a couple of those in a row, but better signs probably from them, like glimpses of how they'll come out of this.
Case in point for the Wellington Phoenix, you got a core back three. Obviously, you got Tim Payne bursting up the right, you got Sam Sutton bursting up the left, but you got a back three, Isaac Hughes and Corbin Piper playing in the same back three. Like, that is going to, it's exciting. It's a strong development thing, but it does make it hard to win A-League games if you're playing two young defenders in your back three, regardless of the experience you have around them, because, as you said, like, Hughes slipped over and Corbin Piper had a turnover running into the middle of the field, which is a terrible place
really
to...
should have just passed.
Terrible place to turn the ball over, as opposed to going out towards the sideline. He was trying to get back infield, turned it over, and then that led to a goal. But if you got two of those young emerging kind of first season and a half type of dudes in your back three, it's going to be tough, because I think maybe it was Western United, they might have had a 17-year-old at centre back.
He's young dude. I don't know exactly how old he was, but yeah.
But he's one dude.
Yeah.
If you got, maybe not teenagers, but if you got two young dudes in your back three, then it gets a bit tricky. So that's just where the Phoenix are at, and